Welcome to another episode of Building the Board presented by Hyper Ice. I'm Britt Johnson here with Kyle Yeomans. Dave Hellman will be joining us later on in the show. Now, Kyle, we are talking about running backs today, but there's not a lot of first-round guys that we see name come up when we're talking about them. When is the earliest, do you think, that a running back is going to get drafted in this draft?
Well, there's a chance that maybe somebody sneaks into the back half of that first round. There always is, just because they want that fifth-year option, a team that may want a running back for the future. However, like you said, it's not likely. And for the most part, I think day two, the early parts of day two, are where we're going to firstly see one of these running backs off of the board. And it really starts with two guys, Breece Hall out of Iowa State, and then also Kenneth Walker III out of Michigan State. Two very different backs. You look at Breece Hall, a balanced backfield. He's very experienced. He had over 3,000 yards since 2020. So the last two seasons, he's had over 3,000 rushing yards. He has certainly been fantastic. And then Kenneth Walker III out of Michigan State. I mean, he wins with speed. He wins with his power. He's an explosive back, but he's not really a receiving back. He only had 13 receptions in 2020. He had 18 receptions in 21, so not necessarily a threat out of the backfield, which, of course, as we know, for an NFL back, you kind of need to do both.
Well, let's talk about the Cowboys, because we know more than likely the Cowboys in the first or second round aren't going to take a running back. We do have a few pretty good ones already.
Good
so
point.
Let's go into the latter part of day two and day three. What guys do you see that would fit this Cowboys team?
There's a couple guys that could potentially be there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that specific need. It might be a sneaky need for the Cowboys when David Hellman joins us here in a couple of moments, but you really look at the back half of the draft. It's not going to be those second-round, third-round guys. It'll be day three before you hear really a running back into the consideration for the Dallas Cowboys. And I look at guys like Abram Smith out of Baylor, switched from linebacker to running back, his original position that he was recruited to go play down in Waco. And then he had 1,600 yards as a senior as a running back after playing defense as a junior. Then Kennedy Brooks, he's a Mansfield, Texas native, played at Oklahoma, very experienced, kind of riddled his collegiate career with some injuries, but when he was on the field, he was exceptionally productive in that Lincoln Riley offense, and he was certainly somebody that I think could be a later round steal in this draft, and mainly because of the injury history. And then another name that hasn't really been talked about a whole lot is Gerry Elliott out of Ole Miss, a lateral patient runner, somebody who waits for the holes to develop, and then he explodes through the holes. He's a first down machine. He's tough to bring down. He's got a great low center of gravity, and somebody to look out for later in day three as well.
Well, another player we're going to be talking a little bit more about, Dave Hellman, is going to take us to Florida to talk about Damian Pierce.
Thanks, Britt. Look, my absolute favorite thing about draft season is the completely reckless comparisons we can make with prospects. So, a Dallas Cowboy fan, can I interest you in a shorter, stockier running back out of the University of Florida? Worked pretty well one time, right? Relax. I am not comparing Damian Pierce to Emmitt Smith, obviously the NFL's rushing leader. But at the risk of sounding a little reckless, I think you can see some similarities in their games, and I'm not kidding. If we can roll the footage here, this guy is a lot of fun, mainly through effort alone, honestly. He's not the fastest 4.59 at the NFL Combine, but he gets forward and he has great vision. This is going to be a theme here. We see him against LSU. There's never an immediate hole for this guy. It's always recognition, patience, nothing out in front of him, cuts it back, and then once he sees where he wants to go, he's going to get there. LSU, usually pretty good at defense, three guys on him, doesn't matter, getting into the end zone. Again, this is a theme for Damian Pierce. This is probably my favorite of the three clips we're going to show you. Note the helmet on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Maybe you remember the national champions, the University of Georgia. About 18 fire-breathing monsters on this defense. Here goes Damian Pierce. Again, have fun. Jordan Davis, Travon Walker clogging the line. Nothing there. He just bounces it outside. And again, maybe he's not the fastest guy in the world, but to get to the corner against one of the best defenses in recent memory, very impressive. Turns something that looked like nothing into a really nice gain. Wrapping it up, when this guy gets drafted, whether it's the Dallas Cowboys or somebody else, this is the play you are going to see. You want to talk about effort, hustle. Damian Pierce against Florida's rival, the Florida State Seminoles. Takes it out of the backfield. Again, patience and recognition. Nothing to the outside. Completely cuts it against the grain. Cuts that defense in half. And again, this is the part you're going to see. My man loses his helmet. Does he care? Absolutely not. Obviously, the play is getting blown dead in the NFL. Damian Pierce absolutely doesn't care. Running it into the end zone. with no headgear whatsoever, the guy's not going to be denied. And again, like, it's not the flashiest skill set. It's not the most amazing talent, but I love his patience. I love his vision. And I love his grit. Like, if you're telling me this guy's available in the 4th round, I'm absolutely interested if I'm the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, but to be fair, the Dallas Cowboys do have Ezekiel Elliott. They do have Tony Pollard already. They might re-sign Corey Clement. We don't know. We have Jaquan Hardy. The list goes on for the Dallas Cowboys as far as running backs. I have to ask you guys this. Do the Cowboys even need to draft a running back this year?
Well, you even mentioned the list goes on and on. Rico Dowdle, Shewo Olanalua, 2 guys that were riddled with injuries. They were out in the early parts of the season because of training camp or preseason injuries that are coming back and will be a part of this roster moving forward. But you got Tony Pollard at the top of that list. He's in the final year of a contract. Then you've got Ezekiel Elliott, who, of course, has a potential out in his deal as well. There's so many different aspects that could come into play in the future surrounding that running back position that a later pick spent on a tailback wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world.
That's what makes the draft so fun. Do they need one here in the year 2022? No. 2023?
Maybe so.
It could get very dicey. Again, Tony Pollard's in the last year of his deal. Do you get that taken care of beforehand? Ezekiel Elliott, we all love the guy. He's done a lot of good stuff for this organization. You got to think about the future when you think about the money involved and the fact that it becomes easier to move on from that contract at this time next year. A 4th, 5th, 6th round pick spent on a running back. They got 4 5ths, by the way. They got plenty of resources to use in this department. So no, it's not like a blinking red light. But if you want to invest in a good player for the future, I got no problem with that whatsoever.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for breaking down these running backs on this episode of Building the Board. Britt Johnson, Kyle Yeomans, Dave Hellman. We will see you guys next time. It is presented by Hyper Ice.